uses a lot of terms that helps describe skateboarding. Goofy foot, regular foot, switch, going fakie. Rippers, you know, ripping are just adjectives to describe kids or skaters that are just ripping, tearing it up, out there on the course and just having a good time and ripping. When you get into a park and there's a lot of guys skating and everyone's hyping each other on and everyone's trying to outdo each other, you know, that's the time to just really go out and you know, blast the biggest airs you can and do the longest grinds you can and just perform as best you can.
Steve Badillo's slang is so far out for me that he needs to translate almost every other word.
In skateboarding, one little false move, one little thing off, and you're slamming. You're taking a fall. But I like blasting airs, for sure.
And that's what you were doing over the doorway here?
Sure, that was a frontside air over the gap.
Coping is basically the steel pipe or plastic PVC that's on the tops of the lip of the ramps. We call it coping.
That's what you grind on?
That's what you grind on and do lip tricks on, is on the coping. Street skating, vert skating, pool skating, and downhill bombing, which, you know, most skaters love. Just the basic, natural form of just going down a hill and going as fast as you can and carving it up and having fun with it.
There's a whole new lexicon for snowboarders. Sticking it clean means pulling off a trick to perfection. If you can repeat the trick again and again, you got it dialed in.
That's sick. That's the super sick stuff.
Sick?
Yeah, it's pretty much sick. Like, someone goes off and does something and stomps it clean, then you're gonna like give them props and it's gonna be something sick, and then that's what you're gonna like. It's gonna raise the level of riding, and then everybody's like just get everybody amped up.
Jake Goff's snowboard lingo isn't the only thing that fascinates me about his speech. Young Californians, and now much of the world, say like where we once said or And they use like to mean quote, unquote. Jake uses like 13 times in both senses in the next 74 words.
What I say, like sometimes people just don't understand it. Like my terminology for certain things, which is like for my clique, my group, like my friends, like nobody else understands it. So if I go someplace else, like someplace new, they're like, they don't know it. So like, and they're like, what are you talking about?
Hi, I'm from Public Broadcasting. We're here to do some filming. Wars and armies have always added words to our language.
Loud and vicious on the pivot. What? Left, right, left, fix the end. Here we go. Punch.
Words like shock and awe, collateral damage, and weapons of mass destruction. The U.S. military has always been a forcing ground for social change. They were among the first national institutions to confront racism and segregation. Now they're on the front line of the war on sexism. The Marine Corps drills this into its new recruits.
There's a green zone, a yellow zone, and a red zone. The green zone would be just a normal interaction between male and female. The yellow zone would probably be the sort of comments where it could be taken as something that may be sexually oriented or may cause someone to feel uncomfortable. The red zone is considered just to be a blatant sexual remark, like check him or her out, look what they have there, or, I want to get some of that.
How has the language changed as far as
The way the men talk.
like cursing and telling jokes? And
Yeah.
like I said, it all depends on how you are. If you can tell a joke just as good as they can, laugh. Tell yours too. If you're the type that you don't want to hear jokes like that, you tell them that, and they should respect that. If you like it, hey, by all means. If you don't, say something.
The military reflects what's happening in society at large. The triumph of political correctness, or euphemism perhaps. But in language these days, Americans seem reluctant to give offense to anyone. What is the Marine Corps policy on gays in the Marines?
Marine Corps policy on homosexuals in the military is we don't ask, and they don't offer that information up. Basically, the don't ask, don't tell policy.
And is that working?
I think it is, sir.
Gay, gay! All right! Happy gay day!
Gay Pride Day in San Francisco. Tom Amiano, a gay comedian in the 1980s, ran for mayor in 2003. Today, many of the words Tom uses to describe the march, queen, queer, fag, dyke, would once have been seen as offensive, homophobic. But today, these women delight in calling themselves dykes on bikes.
Dykes on bikes is always a thrill. Dykes on bikes, which always traditionally starts off the parade, because we're now accumulating a history. You'll see the S&M community and the leather community, the cross-dressing drag queen community, gay cops always have a big contingent in that group, gay clergy. You'll even see, yes, my friends, gay Republicans. I used to do a joke about them, about their cheer being, we're here, we're queer, we're sorry.
The word queer was once a hot topic for the committee that organizes the Gay Pride March.
I think the Pride Committee got very radical in 1993 when the theme for the parade was the Year of the Queer. That placed it on a national platform, the word queer.
Calvin, is it analogous to some blacks calling themselves nigger nowadays, but being very offended if a white person calls them nigger?
That's exactly what it is.
And how do you describe that movement of the word? Why is it evolved like that?
I believe it's because people feel disempowered, and this is one way to empower themselves. If we can use the word queer so many times that it just becomes a normal word in our language without any consequence, then I think we see ourselves as being more empowered. So it sort of proves the point that you can change the meaning of words.
Thank you!
We're here, we're proud, we're not hiding, and we want to take away any of the prejudices and want to say to you, I'm not going to hide it so that you can continue to persecute us.
The ability to speak and understand language almost defines what it is to be human. But some human abilities are increasingly being matched or surpassed by computers. Today, in fact, the cutting edge of research in Silicon Valley involves teaching computers to speak to us and understand us, and thus be easier to use. That research raises fundamental questions about American speech and about language itself. To learn more about all this, I've come to meet Cliff Nass, a professor here at Stanford University.
Humans are what we call voice activated. The minute the brain hears something that sounds even remotely like human speech, we bring to bear all the rules and expectations that we do when dealing with other people. So we listen for the same cues. What's the gender of the voice? What's the emotion? What's the personality? How should I speak back? What are my expectations and understanding? And we basically can't help it.
And so what sort of things do they do?
Well, they respond with politeness and a whole range of other responses.
So it isn't such a bad joke that Canadians say thank you to the automatic teller machine.
No, in fact, it's highly natural. It's probably much harder to avoid saying it than to say it.
Voice-activated technology has enormous commercial possibilities. The German automaker BMW hired Cliff Nass to research the right voice for its latest luxury sedan. A BMW salesman let me test drive the vehicle, and the voice Cliff chose for it.
Navigation menu. You have selected the following entry.
It talks to you. I mean, telephone.
Pardon me?
Telephone.
Telephone menu.
You see, then it keeps asking you. No, it didn't like what I said, so it turned it off.
So one of the things, the first consideration in choosing a voice is should it be male or female. In fact, in the original German version of the interface, they chose a female voice. And German reactors reacted very negatively, saying that I don't want to be told how to drive by a woman. And in fact, they actually had a product recall requiring them to, in fact, have a male voice instead.
But what about American men? I mean, they're much more amenable to being told by women how to drive, aren't they?
Well, I don't know that they'd want to pay extra for it, though.
So just tell me what your input was in arriving at the voice that the BMW uses.
We've generated about 25 models, everything from Knight Rider to Hal, the computer in 2001, to the guy who's usually named Buck on the Stagecoach, a sort of wacky older guy who rode shotgun,
right,
to a best friend, to a golfing buddy, etc. And went through all those and said, which one would best fit the positioning of the BMW automobile? We then went through and listened to hundreds and thousands of voices to come up with those that sounded like a co-pilot. Male, slightly younger than the average age of the driver so they wouldn't feel threatened. A masculine voice but not overly masculine. Speaks relatively slowly so that it doesn't feel like he's trying to take control. And from that, we then selected the voice.
Are other products than cars going to have voices and personalities too?
There's going to be a spread of voice technologies from the high-end to lower-end things, more and more products having those technologies. And then there are going to be the issues of how do we integrate them all? Do we want a cacophony of voices in our home screaming for attention at various times?
Oh my God, you get home after a hard day and 15 things in the house start talking to you?
It's not clear that people are going to want to have long conversations with their toasters or refrigerators. We have to design around that problem.
The way we react to voices becomes much more complicated when we can also see who's talking.
This is Baldy, and what's special about Baldy is he's able to say anything you want him to say with extremely good lip movement that matches what he says. Robin, what would you like him to say?
Something.
Okay, what would you like him to say?
How about, my name is Baldy. Welcome to the Stanford lab.
I'm going to type that in, and then we'll just have Baldy repeat it.
My name is Baldy. Welcome to the Stanford lab.
What about a real human with a synthesized voice?
Well, we can show you what that looks like.
Windfall is the story of an ordinary man in extraordinary circumstances. Van Leinberg is a financially challenged English professor with a wife and 2 kids.
That mismatch leads people to think that he's less intelligent, they trust the synthetic voice less and trust his face less than if he spoke like, quote, a real person.
In experiment after experiment, Cliff Nass has found that this kind of mismatching creates mistrust. Baldy is not trusted when he speaks with a real human voice. Baldy is more trusted and more liked when he speaks with his synthetic voice, because he himself is synthetic. The implications of this research become really serious when mismatching is applied to race and gender. Oh.
Here we see a picture of you.
Do I speak American?
Here we're using a technology called Vipers, and what we were able to do is just take a still photograph of you. You'll see that the face moves and blinks. That's all being generated by the computer. But most powerfully, we can make you speak in different voices.
If I spoke like this, would you hire me for a job requiring contact with the public?
So we know immediately that that's a male, an older male speaking, strong, deep voice, suggesting credibility, and it fits very well with the face we see. Now we can ask the question, what would happen if that same face spoke with a voice that didn't match? And here's what that sounds like.
If I spoke like this, would you hire me for a job requiring contact with the public?
That's funny. I mean, it makes me sound like a white Southerner.
Exactly, but interestingly, that voice is not from a white Southerner. That voice is the voice of John Boa, who you spoke with earlier. And here's John Boa saying the same sentence.
If I spoke like this, would you hire me for a job requiring contact with the public?
Even though those two voices were literally identical, people listening perceive them differently.
And we know he doesn't speak like that normally. He puts these accents on for his own research purposes. Do you have him speaking with his own voice?
Yeah, here's something we heard him say earlier.
Hello. I'm calling about the apartment you have advertised in the paper.
That mismatch can lead to mistrust, perceived lack of intelligence, unwillingness to purchase, etc.
You mean somebody seeing a black African American speaking without an accent they consider appropriate, they mistrust?
Exactly, and that wouldn't just apply to African Americans. That would apply to any ethnicities. People, when they see a face, they bring to bear stereotypes of how that person should behave, think, and speak. When those stereotypes run counter, people say there's something wrong here, and that mistrust has consequences.
As we've seen all across the country, there are stereotypes of the way people perceive some racially associated accents, regional accents, and so on. Is this technology just going to reinforce those stereotypes?
Whatever stereotypes people bring to bear when hearing a human speaking in a certain way, they bring those exact same stereotypes to bear when dealing with computers. If the computer has a female voice, it will be perceived as doing stereotypically better in areas that are typically associated with women, for example, discussions of love and relationships, and will be perceived as being a worse teacher of technical subjects like physics.
So what will determine whether this use of computers and synthesized voices reinforce those stereotypical perceptions, or is there the potential for erasing them?
It's a great question. It has the potential for both. So, for example, let's say we know that this regional accent is stereotyped as being unintelligent. Let's make sure we never use it in any application that would imply a need for intelligence. Then those stereotypes would be strongly reinforced. But let's say if we do the opposite, that would then, because of the way our brains are voice activated, would lead us to weaken that stereotype and potentially eliminate it.
Going back to the comedian who does the brain surgery jokes with a Southern accent, in other words, have all brain surgery instruction done with a Southern accent?
Exactly. That would tend to lead us over time to believe that, in fact, brain surgeons can be or should be Southern.
$9036.
9036.
Dial.
Next.
Dial.
Hi, you've reached Al and David. Please leave us a message and we'll get right back to you.
Hi, sweetie, it's Daddy. I'm driving along the coast of California on a beautiful sunny day, and I wondered how things are in Cambridge, Mass. Anyway, talk to you soon. Love, bye for now. Navigation system.
Navigation menu.
Navigation address book.
Navigation menu.
Address book.
Pardon me? You have selected the following entry. Help takes you at any time to this general help. With options, the possible command options are read out to you.
Help.
Yes or no?
Yes. Help. Help. Everything in the American experience, each new frontier encountered, geographical, spiritual, technical, has altered our language. What kind of a frontier are we crossing by teaching computers our most fundamental human skill, to speak? That question leaves us one last stop on our journey. From San Francisco, I follow the coast north to the city of Seattle. An early start this morning to meet someone who's at the cutting edge of voice-activated computers. But his job at Microsoft keeps him so busy that the only chance we had to talk was on his drive to work. XD Huang is an immigrant from China, and he's the man who's teaching our computers to talk to us.
We want to bring this benefit to the computer, so people can easily get information from computers.
Is technology tending to homogenize language?
If you have a strong accent, computer will probably just ask you, "What? I'm sorry. What did you say?" If you actually interact with today's computer system, probably you have heard that many times. We should just park here. Is that okay? Good.
Microsoft aims to develop computer programs that will recognize any American dialect. Right now, however, business logic suggests an initial investment in speech that is easiest for computers to understand.
Morning.
I think you told us earlier that if they sounded like CNN, they would be recognized by the computer.
If you use standard American English, probably you'll get the work done easier, faster.
So if XD Huang is right, voice-activated computers could create an enormous drive towards a standardized American English. People are always telling me that television has this effect. But on this journey, we've seen that in many ways, Americans are talking less alike, not more. And it seems to me that radio, television, and movies help us understand other ways of speaking, but they don't make us speak that way. Perhaps computers will, and if they do, we'll all end up sounding much more like one another, or rather, sounding much more like our computers.
Welcome to United Airlines Flight Information Line. Please enter or say the United flight number.
United 24.
United Flight 24 is scheduled to depart on time at 9 a.m. from Seattle, Washington.
Hello? Will we all end up sounding like that? Personally, I don't think so. We just aren't programmed that way. Our rich diversity, the strong pull of local identity, the joys of new jargon and slang are all too much part of who we are, as Americans and as human beings. Well, I've reached the end of the road. We began our journey on the ferryboat from Nova Scotia. We end heading out from Seattle, heading not into the sunset of our language, as some fear, but a continuous new dawn. As it comes to an end, what an experience this has been. This journey through the American language and the people who speak it, in all their variety and vitality, informality and creativity. How to sum all that up? Certainly no better than Walt Whitman did more than a century ago, when he wrote, "Our language is not an abstract construction of dictionary makers, but has its basis broad and low, close to the ground. Truer than ever." And like, how cool is that?
For the down low, the skinning, and the 411 on how you speak American, visit us at pbs.org. While you're there, get tips for starting your own PBS program club so you can continue to speak American with your friends and family. Do You Speak American is available on DVD for $69.95 or VHS for $59.95. A companion book is available for $24.95 plus shipping. To order, call 1-800-336-1917 or write to the address on your screen. Speak American has been made possible in part by the National Endowment for the Humanities, promoting excellence in the humanities. Additional funding is provided by the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation, the Ford Foundation, Rosalind P. Walter, and the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations.
I am PBS.